the board. He's got some room. The Flames coming close. Another big hit in the corner. Pass in front, scores!
Welcome to the annual Men's ACHA Preseason Show. We're here live on the campus of Liberty University in the LFSN studios. I'm your host, Monica McKenzie, and joining me on our panel tonight are Patrick Strawn, who's currently off camera, and Dave Semenina. Later on, we'll be hearing from our reporter, Gabe Henderson, with our social media tonight. Well, the show today is going to be a little bit different from the last few years. Tonight, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at each conference, as well as hear from the Executive Director of the ACHA and a few other coaches from around the league. Now, if you're using any social media sites to talk about the show or send in questions or comments, anything like that, please use the hashtag ACHAShow2016 so you can make sure we see your comments and questions. Well, starting out, let's just get right into it. We're going to take a look at the new logo that we have right here. It's a little bit different from the one that they had previously. Dave, any comments on what you see?
Well, the nice part about it is the new commissioner, Mike Walley, has kind of implemented this, and it's kind of a nice stamp for him to put on and kind of say this is kind of a new league, and we're kind of pursuing and moving forward. And we're going to move forward with this logo. I like it. It's collegiate. It looks good. It's got the 3 stars in the middle. I really like what they did with it.
Now, I was kind of a fan of the old one personally, with like the player and the little swoosh thing. I thought it was just a little more simple and sleek, but I definitely agree that change is always good and moving forward and things like that. So I have to say that I do like it. And another big change happening this season is the fact that all the national tournament games for all 5 divisions will be held in Columbus, Ohio. To have all the teams playing in the same city is a first for the ACHA. So how do you think that's going to help expand the reach of the league in general?
Well, the neat part about this is teams that have more than one team in the ACHA, they're going to be able to send a crew there who are going to be able to report on it. They're going to be able to have maybe some faculty there. And again, fans can go there too. Maybe they have a couple kids that play in different leagues or divisions or teams. They're going to be able to stay in one central location. So I think it's going to be great for the league, and it kind of gives a central point for everyone.
It definitely does a lot for Columbus, too. I mean, having all those teams, all those players, fans, families, it's great for the tourism industry there, and fans are able to see access to multiple divisions, not just maybe the one that they're cheering for specifically.
Yeah, and it might actually give kids an opportunity to see some exposure to the league. There's a lot of hockey up in Ohio, and it's close to Michigan, and a lot of big hockey states. So it's going to be interesting to see how the league grows from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we're going to hear from the man who implemented it, the Executive Director of the ACHA, Mike Walley.
Mike Walley, how you doing today?
Very good, sir. Very good to be here today.
Let's get right to it. You got the flow going. It's been a long time since I've seen you, but I think your hair is a little bit longer than the last time I saw you. Let's talk about, you got the John Bucci-Rossberry murals thing going on, or what?
No, as a matter of fact, before your show last year, my first show with you last September, a bunch of folks from University of North Carolina, Charlotte.
Okay.
You know, they all grow their hair for locks of love, and they asked the old man to do the same. Mm-hmm. And after being a Navy pilot for 30 years, never had long hair, this is an interesting experience. But it'll all be coming off Columbus Day weekend when we do a before and after shot with the hockey players from Charlotte.
So you're just going to cut it all off, go bald, or you just...
Yeah, the kids are a little bit smarter than I am. They have longer hair, so they don't have to cut it all off, but mine's just at minimum length, so you know, I'm going to be down to a 4-clip.
Nice. Well, let's get right into it. Not last year, but the year before last, you spent 3 years in the ACC. Now you got 1 year under your belt in the ACHA. Just talk about just the pros and cons this year that you had in your first year just being in the ACHA.
Well, the first thing I would say is manpower, right? Because if you looked when they hired me last August, we had basically 3 commissioners, D1, D2, D3 men's. Mm-hmm. The commissioner of women was vacant, and our webmaster was vacant. Okay. And our sales rep, VP, was also vacant. Okay. So we had to pull together a team, and unfortunately, our D2 commissioner, a good friend of mine, who kind of I grew up under in the last 10 years under the ACC with Mike Radakovich. I'm wearing his pin as an honor to him. Passed away suddenly in October of last year, so that left a D2 vacancy as well. Okay. So the first year was basically trying to build a team, which we have in place now, and that was the biggest challenge. And just this year, the Nationals are in one city. Years previous, it's been in different cities. D1 men was in Bennettsville, Chicago. D2 women's and D1 women's was in Michigan.
and then D2 men and D3 men was in Pennsylvania and Michigan. I know I'm everywhere right now, but just talk about the strategy this year behind having all 5 ACHA teams in one city. It's going to be a lot of buzz this year, just having every team in one city. Is going to be, a lot of hype around it, a lot of people, hey, road to Ohio, road to Columbus. So just talk about what was your strategy behind that, just getting that together this year?
Well, first, personally, it was difficult for me to travel to 5 different cities to see all these nationals, so I wanted to bring it together. But economically and for brand recognition, and that's the main reason for doing this, right? I mean, the D2 NCAA does what they call national festivals. And what that does is it concentrates the economic power and the fan base into one city. And City of Columbus, being a one professional sport town with the Columbus Blue Jackets, I approached the city. It's the center of our universe as far as ACHA hockey goes. Probably 80% of our teams can travel by land to get to Columbus.
Right.
And I was lucky and fortunate enough that the city embraced us, that the Columbus Blue Jackets will be hosting, along with our sponsors, Pure Hockey and Under Armour. So together, it all came together. The other issue is that the Blue Jackets own all the side rinks, the surrounding rinks. So I could deal with the Blue Jackets and getting good deals on the chiller ponds and deal with one manager for all 4 rinks.
Okay. And just talking about branding, you talked about branding earlier. There's a new ACHA logo. I wouldn't say the old one is gone, but you guys are, just revamping, trying to find, just the actual brand for ACHA hockey. So just talk about just the history behind it, the history behind just using the new logo as well as keeping the old logo from last year. I wouldn't say old logo, but the logo that you used last year. Just talk about just the history and the whole copyrights, the things we were talking about earlier.
Sure. So we had 3 logos in the history of the 26-year history of the ACHA. The first logo lasted about 5 years, and and then it was basically a letter font style logo like you see today. And then the second logo, which was developed by a grad student in Towson University, which probably went for about 20 years, has been prevalent throughout and has been our brand for the most of the ACHA's existence.
Okay.
The problem is that everybody has it, and including other businesses, and that because of the way that logo was designed, it's very difficult to enforce copyright rules on it because of the clip art. So we're still going to copyright it, and we're still going to use the second logo. As far as the new third logo is concerned, we went back to the original roots a little bit of the ACHA letters only, to be recognized by our letters only. We kept the colors from the second logo, the logo that we have currently been using in the past 20 years. But we also incorporated the stripes from the first logo and the 3 stars, indicating that this is the third logo. And again, we're going to continue to use basically the second logo and the third logo interchangeably throughout. But for branding purposes and for professional purposes, we'll be using this third logo now.
And lastly, being executive director, you're in a high position. You got a lot of power, you got a lot to say so. But with that, you got to have. It probably won't be the last question, but with that, you probably got to have a vision. You got to have people to believe in your vision. So, just with you, what would be your vision for the next 5 years for the ACHA, not just D1 men's hockey, just the entire ACHA and as a whole?
Well, my bumper sticker is I want to put NCAA D3 out of business. But realistically, we're growing at a rapid rate. We added over 50 schools last year, teams. We're up to 430 universities. We hit Mike's goal before he passed. He always wanted to hit 200 teams in D2. We've hit that this year. And we've hit over 500 teams, which was his goal as well. Women's hockey is growing. We added more than 24 teams this year in women's hockey. And I would say that the biggest goal is I felt, you mentioned my time in the ACHA, and I felt like each conference and each division was on an island to itself, and it was loosely banded by what we called the ACHA. And so my goal over the last year, and will continue to be in the next couple of years, will be to consolidate and standardize the rule set that govern each of the divisions, so that the teams migrate to where their talent level is rather than the specific rules in their division.
Thanks so much, Gabe, for taking the time to interview Mike Walley. Well, now let's get into the reason we are all...
Monica, We didn't introduce Pat. He was a little scared. He didn't know if he was going to show up this year. He took a little too much last year.
Stage fright, kind of.
I'm just glad he's here finally.
Thanks for working up the nerve to get on stage.
No problem, guys. It's what I do. I like to, obviously, I can't roll out of bed like you know what I mean? Just looking that good, like new money.
Well, you're here now and you can't leave, you can't hide, so.
I can hide. I can go in that corner over there.
Well, anyways, let's get into the reason we're all here. The preseason rankings were released earlier, and let's take a look at who is at the top. At number 1, we have Lindenwood. Coming in second, we have Iowa State, Stony Brook, Davenport, Minot. Following the list down there, Central Oklahoma, a tie between Ohio and Oklahoma. Coming in 9th place, Colorado. Guys, taking a look at these teams, are there any surprises here or anything that you're kind of unsure about why they're ranked there?
No, I don't think there's much of a surprise. I think a lot of the rankings are indicative of not only how these teams finished at Nationals, but even somewhat in the same placings of where they were at the end of Nationals. And it only makes sense to put the defending national champs at number 1 and then the team that finished second to them in Iowa State at number 2.
That's a good top 9 there, and it's good to see Colorado making the jump and making a presence felt. They weren't there last year, so it's good to see a couple new teams up there kind of climbing the ranks.
Dave, speaking of teams climbing the ranks, do you see any of them moving up or down as the season goes on?
I'm going to give you guys a little surprise. Last year, Syracuse really impressed me at Nationals. I think they're going to make a pretty good push this year. They've been there, they've won a game at Nationals, so they kind of have that experience. So I'm going to look for them to make one of the bigger jumps in the league.
I'm going to disagree with Dave. I like his pick, though, in Syracuse. They are a top defensive team, but I'm going with the Wildcats from Arizona, Sean Hogan's old team. This team did a phenomenal job last year of getting back to the national championship and really setting the foundation of what they want to build this year. I expect this team to be a very top team in the West.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see how the season goes on and what happens there. Stay tuned. We have plenty more to come in this year's ACHA Men's Preseason Show. We'll be right back.
Anyone who may be doubting being able to go back to school or doing online and having time, I would say LU Online is the best way to go. I'm 31, this was my 4th degree, you can get it done. I changed jobs in the middle of it. It's possible, especially if you do have to work, because so many of us today, we don't have the means to not work and go to school. And I feel like LU Online allows time and the flexibility to do what you need to do in life and in work while getting your degree.
Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in with us. Earlier this week, Pat had the opportunity to speak with coaches from the teams who are joining the ACHA this year. Brand new teams coming in. They've never played in the ACHA before. So, Pat, what was your overall consensus talking to the coaches? What were they most excited about?
I think the biggest thing they were excited about is just making the big jump into the Division I rankings. I think they're excited about the play that they're going to have as you see ASU, also Utah and University of Jamestown all joining the league for the first time. Utah and ASU joining from D2. Jamestown, a very new team, and they're all just excited because they actually all have each other on the schedule this year. So they're excited about just joining the league, and ASU's excited to be back in the WCHL.
And you also talked to coaches who were new last year. So what did they have to say about their first year playing in the ACHA?
They said it was just a big learning curve. They said, like, one of the things that they had to just adjust, they had to adjust to the quality league play. And one thing that they said, as along with the other new coaches, they all agreed, like, I think a lot of kids who are being recruited out of the junior ranks think, like, if there is no NCAA, then it's a bust because club hockey gets a bad rep. But they all really agreed that there's some very high-quality hockey being played at the Division I ranks and even in Division II. There are some good clubs on here. As I said, Utah and Arizona State saw them both at D2 Nationals last year. They were both 1 and 2 in the West, and ASU number 1 in Utah. And then Jamestown, that's another team that's going to be solid. Alabama had a terrific year, so did Missouri State and Arkansas. And those 3 teams that are 3 of the 5 that joined last year, they're all ranked in the preseason polls this coming season.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like club hockey is getting more and more prominent and expanding more and more. So it makes sense that they feel that sort of sense of not really knowing if players will want to come because, as you said, the NCAA issue and things like that. But it's encouraging to hear that more players are wanting to come to the club hockey level. Did they have any advice for new coaches this year?
They just said one of the big things they were all talking about is just taking it all in stride. They said enjoy the moment that they're going to be in. For coaches, they said stay the course. Don't let any outside voices influence your decision or change the plan that you have. And then, two, make sure you do have a plan, do your research, look at the teams that you're going in. And they were also talking about even kind of watch what everyone else is doing, because for the independents, you kind of got to look at where everyone is, because there's a couple teams that are not probably in the top 20, as we saw last year, that will make their way to nationals because of the auto bid. So, like, you kind of really need to be in the top 16, similar to the old format, and that really just plays into getting into the national tournament picture.
There's definitely been an influx of teams added last season and currently heading into this season. So what are your thoughts on the teams that are being added?
I think it's a good thing. I think for the brand of the ACHA, you kind of need those big-name schools to join, not only big-name schools, but teams that have good quality hockey. Alabama, Missouri State, and Arkansas, they were all good programs coming in. I know Colorado and Colorado State, they came in a few years ago, and now look at them. They're both ranked in the top 25. And then you look at this coming season, Utah, another good quality hockey program, and big-name school, as well as Arizona State, that left for only a season, and now they're back in the ACHA. I think it's just good for the league when you get more notable schools in the league, because it helps with not only expanding of the reach of the league and promoting it, but it also helps with the brand, because you have such high branded and marquee big name schools in it.
Now, of the teams that you just mentioned, putting on the spot here, who do you think is going to see the most initial success starting out?
Oh, I don't know. Why would you do that to me? It's hard to say. I mean, I have all the 3 new teams that came out. Arizona State, they're the team that's still they're ranked currently right now, tied for 24. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them. They were number 1 in the West region of Division II. I believe they only lost 2 or 3 games last season, so they'll be solid. But don't be surprised also if you see Utah. They have some top-end talent, too, there, and they definitely have a lot of key returners coming back. So I expect both of those teams to make a big splash this coming season and both finish ranked as well.
All right, Pat, well, thanks for all your research there on all the new teams coming in. Now, looking at current teams who are already here, Dave, you spent a lot of time researching, preparing for this show. So first off, we're going to start with the independents. Can you tell me a little bit about just your general overall knowledge, what you saw when you were looking at them?
Yeah, well, Pat mentioned Utah and Bama. Now, they're ranked number 1. Sorry, that's football. But anyway, Bama had a great year last year, and they're actually having a Harambe night. So that's going to give them a little extra instant credibility around the school, around the league, absolutely. Yeah. And they've actually had 4 games already. So they won by a big margin, 6-2 over West Virginia, but then they lost 7-1 the next night against West Virginia. Next weekend, they went and won. They lost to OU. 4-0, but then they beat them 9-2 the next night. So it's nice to see this team, if they can kind of put a consistent run together. I think they're going to climb in the ranks. Again, Utah, last year they were at Nationals. They had a good showing. And we've noticed that teams that do good at Nationals, when they move up, they're also competitive. So I think that depth might need a little work, but I think they're going to be excited every weekend, and they're going to be able to show their talent. But let's be honest, Minot is kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to the independents. They're returning 3 brothers, the Lipinski brothers. So, I mean, you can't really compete against that. I don't know any other team that has 3 brothers. So right there, they have that pool taken care of. And they're solid on D. And again, Coach Regier has that team always competitive, always ready to go. And it's tough to go up there and play games. I know Liberty's been up there a few times, and it's not an easy place to travel to and get to and unpack and play a competitive team. So I think they're going to, again, stay kind of near the top of the independent. Even though they don't get anything for it, I think they're going to continue to be the cream of the crop for the independent league.
In all your research, I mean, you said Minot's normally at the top. Is there a specific player that stands out to you as being one of the more skilled ones to watch for? There's
a few, but we're going to get to that later. I don't want to reveal all my secrets just yet. We're still early in the show, so. Plus, Pat might steal them if I do that. So.
I got my own very talented player that I think you're not even going to be ready to see for.
Well, stay tuned for that. Our friends over at Oakland put together a piece highlighting their team as well as their conference, so let's take a look and see what they did.
With a new head coach and only 8 players returning from last season's roster, Oakland is looking to get the new season off on the right note.
I like what I've seen thus far from the boys. We've got a lot of guys coming back. And a lot of new faces as well. I think everybody's gelling. From training camp, you could really tell the boys started clicking as a family, which is huge for us. There wasn't a case at all times last year, so I'm happy to see we're getting off on the right foot. Well, it's actually good in our case, coming in fresh. it's good to have guys that we brought in, or at least guys that we've talked to come into school. So at least they're all on the same page in that regard. And I think from the returning standpoint, there's a lot of guys who looked at it that way anyway last year. So it really hasn't been a huge difference for us. Like I said before, we've got a good group of hardworking guys, and they're going to come in and day out and leave it all out there.
With the first practices underway, the biggest key for Oakland is figuring out who gels with who, a process that will continue through the first couple of games of the season.
I think the boys are working well out here today. We've been skating really hard. Coach Rones is getting our legs back into it. We still need to tidy up on some passes and getting to know each other, where each other are going to be everywhere. But so far, things are looking good.
With an overhauled roster, it's tough to tell exactly how the Grizzlies would do early here this season. But one thing's for sure, they're going to be a tough team to play against, and they're going to be even grittier than before.
I see compared very good with the other teams. We brought in a lot of new guys. We have a lot of speed on the team. We had first 2 practices, and it's looking good right now. We're training very hard.
Our expectations are pretty high. Coming into the season, we know what we're capable of. We feel like we got a good team at hand. We're ready to get after it, and we expect great things.
The biggest adjustment's going to be staying consistent. Last year we had our ups and downs. We played consistent hockey at the end of the year. If we can keep that even keel all year long and stay playing hard for a full 60, we're going to be golden.
Thanks so much for that piece. Now, you might notice a familiar face is missing from our desk tonight. Our very own Rhett McGibbon is unable to join us. He's at home with an illness. So, Rhett, if you're watching, hi, Rhett. Hope you're feeling better.
I think it's the World Cup illness.
Oh, yes. Team North America's playing. Yeah. Has to stay and watch that. Well, anyways, we're here doing our job, so we're picking up the slack for Rhett. He was supposed to do the research for the GLCHL, but as you know, he's not here. So, guys, let's talk about that conference. Pat, any overall thoughts on what we can expect from them this season?
Yeah, I think you can expect what we saw the last couple of years from them. You're seeing a hardworking and gritty conference out of a couple of teams in there. A lot of them good individual rivalries coming in there. The biggest rivalry, obviously, probably that's most notable is the Duck series between Oakland and Davenport. That's huge. But 4 of these teams are ranked in the preseason poll, so that's a big thing, including one of them in Davenport that made it all the way to the Final Four.
Now, Dave, which team do you see being at the top this season?
Well, Davenport kind of surprised me last year. I thought Adrian was going to take the division, and so it was kind of nice to see new faces appear, and I think Davenport's kind of reestablished himself as one of the top teams in the league. Now, Adrian is no slouch when it comes to that, so it's going to be interesting to see how they respond and how their leading scorer, Coburn, can take their team and see if he can lead them to a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very competitive conference. Lots of good teams there. If you were to pick a word or two to describe them, Pat, what might that be?
I just picked one, Monica. I said gritty.
Okay, well, I want another one.
Oh, another one. Hardworking.
Okay.
That's what I would say out of the guys up north in the lakes. A lot of these schools coming out of the Michigan ranks, as we said. Davenport, Adrian, Western Michigan, Michigan Dearborn. You also got Rochester College. They're all just very gritty, hardworking teams and all very versatile in playmaking as well.
You already touched on it, the rivalry matchup, but for fans who maybe can't watch every game or can't follow every game for these teams, besides that rivalry, what would be one specific game you think people should most tune into?
I want to hear what Dave has to say about this, because he played a couple of good rivalries in this one.
Anytime you go to Oakland, you never know what the refs are going to do. So I think when Davenport goes to Oakland, or any team goes to Oakland, the refs are so unpredictable. So I think even Adrian in Oakland, Michigan Dearborn and Oakland, I think those are all going to be good games because it's just hard to read. You don't have fresh ice for warm-up, so it's just a different atmosphere.
I like Michigan Dearborn versus Davenport. That is going to be, I think, one of the games that need to be watched. A rematch of the conference tournament championship game. Michigan Dearborn were able to beat the Panthers in overtime, which was huge, upsetting them. And Michigan Dearborn, one of the lower teams just making into nationals last year, this is going to be a team you could potentially see turning some headway and climbing the ranks.
That probably catapulted Davenport to making it all the way they did in nationals, didn't it?
They might have, but it might also be the momentum Michigan Dearborn needs to steer that ship in the right direction.
Let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, I can't wait. We need to start redoing some of the show at the end to see who's right at the beginning.
I know my rookie predictions were pretty on point last year. So
kind of like an I told you so segment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, maybe we can implement that this year.
Well, Pat wouldn't have a segment in that. So
it would just be all Dave.
He would leave again.
All right, well, you already said your player to watch, Brad Coburn. Pat, do you have a specific player?
Yeah, I definitely have to pick the D-man from Ryan Urshow, which he is someone that actually Dave missed on his rookie watch a couple years ago. So, but this guy has been all-rookie his first year, and then he became an All-American this past year, first team. He's one of the best scoring defensemen in all the league. Someone definitely you got to really watch on the back end when it comes to Michigan Dearborn really coming out there.
All right, well, thanks, guys. There's plenty more analysis to come, including Dave's top-line picks. We'll see if he can get those right, as well as interview Coach Zombo from Lindenwood University. We'll be right back.
Liberty always stood out to me for a lot of different reasons. One, my dad came here, so I was coming up here for baseball games. But when you step on the campus, there's something different. I've had countless professors that have not only been involved in my life academically, but also personally and spiritually. And that's something that Liberty's program brings to their students that's different from any other college. Liberty is the best place to get involved. It has every hands-on experience you could ask for. And that has been the highlight of my 4 years. Because when you go to a job, they want to see what you can do. The most valuable thing I'll take away is it just grew me as a person. It taught me, from how to pray to really understand and know God and to go out in the world and complete my purpose, which is spread the love of Christ.
Welcome back to the men's ACHA preseason show. Now, as Dave pointed out, normally you'd have your top rookie watch, which you are pretty proud of because normally you're really successful at it. But this year you want to try something different. You call it your top line picks. So let's see if you can get, some of these right.
Yeah, in honorary member or in honor of the World Cup, I want to just pick some of the 5 best players to put on the ice along with the goalie. So here's kind of what I came up with. Up front, we have JT Hall, which that was kind of an easy pick, the player of the year. Of course he's going to make it. Tony Uglum, who I also picked as the leading rookie last year. And who won the rookie of the year? Tony Uglum.
Wow, toot your
Then
own
we
horn.
got Brad Coburn, who also won the rookie of the year 2 years before that. So those are going to be my top 3 forwards. Now, if they go down with an injury, I'm going to go to Jeremy Johnson out of Minot and Jordan Simmons out of Davenport. They had great years. They're consistent. They're in tough leagues, and I know that they can play. So those are my, I guess that's 5 forwards. But again, there's injuries. It happens.
And just to interject here, I don't know if you can see this, but on the bottom, we have some nice self-portraits of our very own Dave here. Back in the glory days. Just walk us through what you see there.
I see Coach Bing, and those are some really old pictures. I'm glad you guys were able to find those.
Can we start a hashtag like bring the stash back or something? I don't know.
Yeah, No Shave November's coming up, so I'm glad that everyone's going to know what I'm going to look like here in November.
Well, we'll tweet those out if you are able to bring that stash back this season. All right, now looking to defensemen, who do you have there?
So this guy helped win a national championship. So I'm going to pick Brandon Rumble out of Lindenwood. This guy was huge for them, and he was able to, again, win the national championship. Next, going to go to Ohio to Mr. Hogan, who preaches high on Mike Lafreniere. So again, he had a great season. So I'm going to look for him again. Now I do have an honorable mention. Is Tyler Lazarek. So again, he almost made my list, but he's not quite there. So I know that if Rumble blocks a shot and gets hurt, I got my guy Lazarek to fill in for him.
Now in these forwards and defensemen, what separates your honorable mentions from the ones who actually made the team?
See, it's so close, and there's that little X factor. And I think that Rumble, again, I think he's the top D in the league. So I'm going to pick him. Again, he won the national championship, so you can't really argue with me on that one.
All right, well, touching on goaltenders.
So, again, I'm going to toot my own horn. Last year, Alex Henry, I picked to be the best rookie goalie, and he helped UCO, and now he has a year under his belt. So he is going to be my goaltender to start for the ACHA All-David team. So, again, I think he's going to be a great goalie. He's got some experience, and now he's going to be able to really take off and really lead UCO.
All right, well, I'm sure people are disappointed you didn't do your rookie watch. Maybe we can look for that next season along with that mustache and goatee. So we'll work on that for next year. Now I'm going to throw things over to Pat, who will give us some information about the CHMA conference. Pat, give me your overall impression on that conference.
thought it was a very interesting conference, very strong conference. Mercyhurst was the team that came out and won the conference after the year before they fell just short. Robert Morris PA was the team who finished second this past year. They were able to finish second, but Mercyhurst did an excellent job making their second national tournament since 2012.
Who do you see being at the top of the conference this season?
I think the top of the conference, it's hard to argue against Mercyhurst. I mean, strong program, strong team that came out this past year, 22-10 last year. They're 12-1-1 in the conference, so that's huge. And they're returning their top 3 scorers that together put 123 points on the board, which is huge, in Marsh, Nada, and Velasic. So that's big command from just those guys. But look for Robert Morris PA. I mean, you got to argue with what they can do as well. This is a team that's very versatile and strong in play. So you could argue that that's going to be the team to really challenge Mercyhurst this upcoming season.
Now, for Mercyhurst, you predicted them to be at the top. What challenges might you see for them this year?
I think the challenge that they're going to have is, like, they return their top 3 scorers, but also after that, they're missing 5 of their next 7, so that's going to be huge, losing that much scoring depth on the team. But the coach said they brought in some really strong recruits, and Coach McKinnon, that is, and he was really happy with the recruiting class they brought in. It's still early in the season, so the team needs to gel well together. But he feels really good about what this team does, and he feels like they can get – this is a group that's strong and solid enough to get the team back to nationals.
Now, out of the entire conference, pick one player to watch that you think will potentially have the most successful season.
Oh, the player I got to watch has got to be from the top team. It's Greg Marsh. I mean, come on, Monica. This guy's a monster, very versatile playmaker. He was the top scorer, all-conference honoree, 19 goals, 24 assists, 43 points. You got to really respect what Greg Marsh brings to the table night in and night out, one of the elite goal scorers in the CHMA. So you definitely got to respect his game, and that's why I got to pick him as my top player.
All right, Pat, well, thank you for all your valuable information and research. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to Skype with Coach Zombo from Lindenwood Belleville University, who was awarded Coach of the Year last season. Here's what he had to say. All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, head coach Rick Zombo. So early on in your career, you saw 12 successful seasons in the NHL. So I'm just curious, what prompted you to make the move to Missouri and take what was then at the time an assistant coaching position there?
I was fortunate to play in the National Hockey League, and one of my favorite teams was St. Louis, and my children were raised here in St. Louis, and I've always been involved with youth hockey in St. Louis. And to have the opportunity to coach at Lindenwood University, I was fortunate. I was prepared for it. I had coached in the North American League teams here in St. Louis, USHL team here in St. Louis, and it was a natural progression for myself.
Now, early on, when you were assistant coaching there, the team saw 2 successful seasons, winning the championship twice. Now, last season, you guys won the title. This was your first time winning the title as a head coach. So how did that feel, winning it in the head coaching position?
Well, it's fantastic. Anytime you win, whether you're a player, assistant coach, or head coach, is fantastic, and it's just a great team effort. It was a long time coming. It seemed like a long time coming for us because our expectations are extremely high. We set for ourselves every year. Every year that I've been coaching here at Lindenwood, the competition has been getting stiffer. And the nicest thing for me is I really felt that any of the top 10 teams that survived the national tournament were good enough to win. We were just fortunate. Everything fell into place, and we put in the work during the regular season for that.
Now, over the summer, you only lost a few graduating players, so you're basically returning the same championship-winning team. How does this add pressure to the team and you as a coach to have a successful season like you had last year?
It does. I mean, our pressure is always internal. I really appreciate Monday to Thursday in practice and that preparation. During the season, everything's a mini-series, so we've had preparation just for the competition that we play. It leads up to winning that final game in a national tournament. But also, we spend all year on recruiting, and recruiting is getting the right people that are going to fit our identity. So to know what I had coming in and know what I'm losing, and my players always understand that they have 3 things at exit meeting, and that's defend, build, and take ownership. And they had to defend their spots at training camp, and some didn't. Most of them did. So I have a nice class coming back, and the players that I brought in were caliber that not only are going to make immediate impact, but also something that we could build for the future with.
All right, well, thanks so much for your time, Coach, and best of luck this season.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, continuing on with our conference analysis, Pat, you're back in the hot seat because you researched how things are going in the CSCHL conference. So give me your first preliminary thoughts on what you found there.
Talented. I would say this is one of the most talented conferences. There's only 5 teams in this conference. They're all ranked, actually all in the top 16 in that. And then, so you got to really respect them, 1 and 2, and then the other big name in Ohio being 7. So that's something I would definitely say about this conference. Very talented.
Who do you see being at the top of this talented conference?
Unfortunately, I got to say, well, unfortunately, okay, that sounded really bad. But the team I got to see that is at the top, you can't argue with the defending champs in Lindenwood. I mean, we're talking to Coach Zombo. He said, only lost a couple guys. He said, we recruited some. He's like, honestly, we're better than we were last year, which is hard to believe that they can improve on what they did. But he says they are, and I believe him. Like, it's been a long time coming for Coach Zombo since he's been the head coach of this Lindenwood Lions team. And it's definitely something I could see them maybe. We haven't had a repeat champ in 6 years. They could be the first team to do it.
I mean, they'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with. Any of their opponents, night in, night out, are going to have a hard time playing them. Now, do you see a particular matchup or rivalry that is kind of one of the hotter ones in this conference?
Easily, it's got to be the rematch between them and the Cyclones. The national championship game, Cyclones were up 1-0 after one period, lose a heartbreaker 2-1 to the Lions. It was a very hard-fought hockey game, very, very defensive hockey game, too. And I expect these two teams that are not only good offensively, but even better defensively to have another good showing when they play each other as well.
Do you see a particular player in this conference as the player to watch?
I like Brandon Rumble, the second-team All-American from this conference, the big D man. He really brings a lot of leadership on the back end for this team and has been a key cog into the success that they had. This team really had a slow build after making it to the Final Four. They lost in the play-in game 2 years ago. Then the next season, they make it to the quarters. And then last year, we saw it all culminate with the national championship.
Dave, do you have a specific player to watch?
I mean, last year Pat raved about Breslin and I raved about Harris, and now you're getting away from him? You're just giving up on him after 1 year?
I'm changing my opinion. And that's funny you talk about Breslin because who made the All-American team, Breslin or Harris?
Yeah,
that's right, Breslin.
They're both good.
Yeah.
They're both good. I thought Harris was going to have a few more, but this year it's going to be Breslin's year. He doesn't have Harris. So it's going to be all Breslin this year. 44 points last year. I think he's going to step it up. I think he's going to get 55, 60 points this year. You can go on the record with that, and we can play that back whenever you want.
Oh, I can't wait. But you also got to credit some of the other playmakers he's got. He's also got Patrick Spilacci. I like his name, Patrick. That's a smart man right there. Matthew Hartman as well, honorable mention, all-tournament team. So that guy's going to be solid, too. They're going to really command the offense for the strong Ohio and deep Bobcat team.
All right, well, definitely be exciting to watch for sure this conference. Well, coming up, we have an interview from Liberty's head coach, Kirk Handy, as well as get to our social media segment with Gabe. Stay tuned for more from the men's ACHA preseason show.
Hi, I'm Anita, and I'm graduating with a degree in business administration and a minor in psychology. I love Liberty Online because of its flexibility. I can spend time with my family and, go back to the schoolwork later, even if it's at midnight. I can be at home, do my schoolwork in my pajamas, and it's worked out perfect, absolutely perfect. I've been able to help take care of my 3-year-old grandson while his parents work, so that's just been awesome. I didn't take classes for 20 years. I was on unemployment and applying for jobs. I had the experience, but I didn't have the degree that was usually required. Coming back as an older, more mature, wiser person, I did much better. You can do it. Don't underestimate yourself. I totally was underestimating myself, but I am smarter than I thought. I am especially excited to graduate because I will be graduating with my daughter. I can't wait to see what God has in store for my life.
Welcome back to the show. Gabe Henderson is standing by with our social media segment of the night. Gabe, what have you been seeing from Twitter since the show started?
Well, tell Brett to stop tweeting me. I'm not going to read your tweet tonight. But let's get right to it. This question's for you guys. Question number 1. Do you think Lindenwood can repeat this year? I know they won last year. They beat Iowa State. Pac talked about it earlier. They beat Iowa State. But do you think those guys can repeat this year and win another title this year?
Well, I'll take this one since I talked about Lindenwood already. Yeah, I do. I think they're very strong enough, very capable. As Coach Zombo said it, they play a very team-oriented style of play. A lot of their guys, no one's over 40 points, but you have a lot of guys well over 20 points. Very strong team unit, and that's why it's very hard to beat the Lions in and night out. And plus, they're a defensive first-effort team.
Well, of course, anyone can repeat, but will they? Do you think they will?
Yeah, I think they will.
I
guess
think they will. They have a target on their back, and they're not a sneaky team. I've always seen them as a sneaky team. They're kind of under the radar, and now the secret's out.
Is it?
Yeah, like they can't hide from anyone now.
Like
so they're going to have a big target on their back. Look at UCO last year. They had a little drop-off because every night the teams brought their best when they play the champs. That's just how it is. So they're going to have a lot tougher time this year, I think.
So you don't think they can be – they're the last team to win back-to-back championships. You don't think they can be the first team to do it again?
Again, any team can. I don't think they will.
I agree with you, Dave. I mean, it's club hockey.
Haters.
That's what makes our job so hard in this preseason show. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen. Is Lindenwood talented? Absolutely. I mean, talking to Coach Zombo, as he said, barely lost any players. So they're definitely going to be a team to watch. But will they repeat? I mean, no one can really tell for sure.
If they take their foot off the gas, I think that a lot of teams are going to surprise them because they're going to be coming hard at them.
I agree with Dave. Sorry, Pat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would.
All right, guys. Out of all the divisions with the Nationals format, which Nationals format do you think is the best?
I'll start with this one.
Let's hear it.
And you're going to say it's because I'm a female.
Oh, here we go.
But I like the women's format because they have the first round best-of-3 series. I mean, as I said before, club hockey, it's so unpredictable. Team comes in, they have a bad game, and automatically they're out. I mean, I don't really like that format. I think it makes it a little more fair and gives teams a little bit more opportunities to succeed and kind of feel out their opponents, and I like the women's format.
So you think teams should lose and just get rewarded for that?
No, I mean, I think they should get a fair shot in the first round, get the nerves out a little bit, the playoffs.
Now, I do like a little bit what you said.
Thank
team
you,
can have a
for
bad
once.
game and still regroup. So I like the way the D2 men's does it. It's a round robin. It's what the World Cup does, and they know what they're doing. I mean, great hockey. It's great to see. So I like where you get 3 games. The only thing that sucks with that is if you lose the first 2, your third one's kind of a wash. But other than that, it kind of gives teams a chance. And again, you can have a bad night. But the good thing about when you do have a bad night and you lose, again, in D1, you can't have a bad day.
Yeah.
So it's always the team who's playing at their best that wins.
Yeah.
All right, so I interviewed Mike Walley earlier. But to you guys, how do you think the ACHA will progress with his leadership this year?
I think it's already progressed pretty well. I think one of the things that I like the most about it is what they did at Nationals, not only putting it all on one site, but in particular, I like the broadcast that they did with Go Live Sports, actually. Got to credit them. Part of our B-roll is from Go Live Sports, so thanks for that. But also, I like not only the quality of the video that they've given us, but also it's free, which has been a huge benefit. I know it was a rave at all the national tournaments. Got to go to a lot of them this past year, so I think that is one of the big things that's been huge, and it's helped with expanding the reach of the league.
I think Nationals being in one place definitely helps as well with the expanding the reach of the league. I mean, just the press covering Nationals this season, it's going to be a huge event. So many players, so many families, fans there in Columbus. So I think that is definitely a huge step forward, and it's definitely going to help move the ACHA in the right direction to keep expanding its reach.
And it's going to take some miles off Pat's car from driving everywhere.
Yes.
So that's another good point.
Exactly.
That's a huge good point.
But yeah, I really like what Mike Walley's done so far. And again, he keeps progressing, and there's some consistency in it. So.
All right, well, moving forward, as we've been talking about, we've been discussing each conference. Well, now it's my turn to get on the hot seat with the ECHA conference. So I've done my homework a little bit. Pat, I think you're going to quiz me maybe. But
I think so. So first, I'm going to ask you, what is your word to describe this conference?
I think I might say a little bit predictable, which is kind of harsh. I don't want to insult any teams who are in this conference, but in the past few years, Navy has always come out on top. Lehigh and Villanova have given them a run for their money in recent years, but yeah, predictable, I think, would have to be my word.
I'm glad you said that because I'm glad that people will start hating you now.
I'll take some of the heat from you.
I appreciate that. Okay.
It's my turn.
So now, then, with that being said, then what's the matchup that we're going to have to see? Which one you think will be better, either Navy or Lehigh, or Navy versus Villanova?
I definitely think Navy versus Lehigh. Lehigh was in the conference final. Navy beat them last season to win the conference, so I think there's going to be kind of that rivalry again this season. Bad blood there, carrying over from last year, so I think that's going to be the matchup to watch there.
And as you've been asking us a lot about players. I got to hear your player. Me and Dave have picked a player too for this conference, so let's see if we did our homework too.
All right, well, my player to watch is Andrew Carlin. He's from Lehigh. He's the goaltender there. He's only a sophomore, so he still has 3 years left. He was the tournament MVP in the ACHA playoffs, so he's definitely one to watch. Very skilled, very good goaltender for them. Yeah, surprising it's not a player from Navy, but yeah, going with one from Lehigh.
Dave? Who's your player?
I'm also going from Lehigh,
Oh,
but
okay.
this guy led the league in scoring. How can you not pick this guy? I mean, yeah, you need a goalie, but
Easy choice.
yeah, you
Yeah,
need
seriously.
scores.
Very
you need the Connor McDavids.
Yeah,
So
predictable, I
again,
guess.
Yeah.
Chris Ramondelli, 87 points last year. You can't really compare to that because he led the league. So he's going to have another year. He's going to have experience. So I expect him to again have another. I think he's going to get 80 points again this year.
I'm going to go with Navy's Jacko here. I really like the playmaking that this guy does and brings to the table. Watched him at Nationals a couple years ago. He's one of the key cogs that helps make this high-powered offense run for the midshipmen, and I think that's why he's a key player for them to watch. Monica, I got one more question to ask you. Who's going to win this conference then? Since you said Navy a while ago, are they still going to be the team to beat?
I'm going to go with Navy, but I think Villanova might have a push for it. They've been kind of unpredictable in the past 2 seasons. They were really successful and then dropped to 5th place last year, but I think they might be able to rebound and give them a run for their money. But also, I mean, Lehigh, those top 3, they're just so tight, and you can never really figure out what they're going to do each season.
I agree. Yep.
She passes
All
the
right.
test.
Yeah, you're off the hot
Thanks,
seat.
guys. Well, moving along, we had the chance to speak with Liberty's head coach, Kirk Handy, about the upcoming year and their move from being independent to joining the ESCHL.
Hey, Kirk, thanks for joining us and taking that 2-minute drive down 460 to be here this evening. You guys are independent last year. Now you're joining the ESCHL. What kind of made that come about in your decision to join?
Yeah, well, they reached out to us. The commissioner of the conference reached out to us and said there was an opening for a team to join when Lebanon Valley left, and we obviously felt that it was a great fit for us, to be in there with Stony Brook and Delaware. We haven't played Rhode Island in a few years, but Rhode Island, we played Rutgers last year, and so we felt like it was a great fit, great quality teams, and great conference.
Yeah, you mentioned that you played some of these teams already, and there's a couple new teams you haven't played in a while. How do you think you guys will fit into this league?
To be perfectly honest with you, I think it's a great fit, not only for the quality of teams there, but I believe that we're going to be able to challenge for the conference championship in the first year.
Awesome. Now, there's obviously an advantage to joining a league as opposed to being independent. What do you think the biggest advantage is?
Well, for us, the biggest advantage is obviously 2 reasons. One, to be able to get in an auto bid for the national championship or national tournament. The second, which I really think is the biggest one for us, is the opportunity to play that national style tournament 2 weeks before in the conference tournament and set up the same way. You win, you keep going. If you lose, you go home. So for us, that's a huge advantage 2 weeks before to have, national caliber teams playing in our conference in 2 weeks before a national tournament.
Yeah, I guess you guys are used to kind of having a few weeks off before nationals. How do you think this will kind of affect you guys before going into nationals, getting those few extra games in?
Yeah, it's a huge positive for us. You are right. As an independent, it's hard to play those extra games when teams are in their conference championships. That weekend is hard to play. So sometimes you took 2.5 weeks off instead of a week and a half. So it's going to be a huge advantage for us this year.
Now, after missing nationals just by a hair last year, if you win your conference, you get an auto bid. So does that have anything to do with your guys' decision to join this conference?
It certainly did factor into it, but the major reason why we decided to join was the fact that you really get to play a conference style games throughout the year, and it really ups the ante throughout the year, and then the conference tournament at the end of the year. I believe that those were the major reasons why.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. Have a safe drive home, and I'm going to send it back to you, Monica.
Wow, Dave, you just teleported right over from there. That was pretty talented.
Pretty quick. I don't like to be late.
All right, so we just heard from one of the new coaches in the ESCHL, Kirk Handy from Liberty. Now, you did your research on this conference, hopefully. Tell me a little bit about your overall thoughts.
I'm not too worried about the hot seat. But, again, they add a new team in Liberty, which they've played Stony Brook 4 times for the last I don't know how many years. So they already have a rivalry. But now when you're in a conference, you might even get a couple more games, a few conference games. Can you imagine playing a team 5-6 times a year? That's great. We're going to start kind of at the bottom with Westchester. They kind of had a rough year, but this is a good league too. So I think they're kind of starting to build. They have a younger team. Then we're going to move on to Rhode Island, who was 6-12 last year. This year they have 26 freshmen and sophomores out of the 33 players. Now they're led by their senior, Bodette, who was in one of the top leading scorers in the league. So this is a young team, but again, they're growing. The coach has been there for a long time, so he knows how to win. So I think he's building from the bottom up, and it's nice to see them kind of rise. Next, we're going to go on to the Rutgers team. Pat had a few things to say about them last year, but they stepped up. Now, they didn't quite do as well as we thought that they were going to do, is kind of what they said, but they did turn the corner. And now they have a new coach. Last year they had a debacle where a month before they had to get a new coach, but this year they have a coach. There's some consistency in there. So it's going to be nice to see them kind of, again, make a push and start to rise. Then you got Delaware. They have a huge home ice advantage with the Olympic sheet. So I think that's a huge factor that a lot of times people forget. But they're building again. They had a new coach last year, so it's going to be nice to see them continue to grow. And then we got the best guys in the league in Stony Brook. 16-1 in their conference. They've won the league for the last few years. Now, one thing that's going to be tough for Stony Brook, they lose 3 of their top 6 forwards. But the good news is they got JT Hall back, who was the player of the year. So anytime you have the player of the year coming back, I think he's going to be able to lead that team, and they're going to have guys that are going to step up, and they're going to be able to follow JT Hall. So the way that he kind of led was by example, talked to their coach a little bit, and he said he works hard and everyone kind of follows him. So I think JT Hall is going to be able to show the younger guys and kind of take them on his back and take them again to another successful year. And then we have Liberty, who they don't have a record in the league, in the division last year, so it's going to be interesting to see how that mixes up. Again, going from independent to a league is different, and like I said, they could end up playing Stony Brook 5 or 6 times the next year, which would be awesome. So they already kind of have a rivalry. To see that even grow more is going to be awesome, I think.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of teams kind of have it out against Liberty. Anytime teams come in, it's always pretty physical and violent, so they're always fun games to watch. Besides rivalries with Liberty, what other rivalries do you see there between other teams?
Well, Delaware is consistently a good team also, so whenever teams go there, again, I mentioned the ice service, and I think that's a huge factor. So, again, Delaware is, I think, a very good team. They kind of had an off year last year. It wasn't too off, but they were able to stay high in their conference, but they weren't able to really compete with Stony Brook. So I think they're going to be a little better this year and give Stony Brook a few more games. I think Stony Brook might end up with 1 or 2 losses, just with Liberty coming in and joining, and then with Delaware maybe giving them a loss or 2. But it's going to be interesting to see that league kind of maybe spread out the glory a little bit. But I think Stony Brook still might come out on top.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, we'll close out our conference analysis as well as give you our predictions for the Final Four in the ACHA.
Meet Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Debbie. Matthew and Mark are taught by some of the country's best professors. So are Luke and Debbie. They attend one of the largest nonprofit universities in the country. And whether at home or abroad, they're educated by the same professors as Matthew and Mark at Liberty University. With over 500 online and on-campus programs of study, there's no one way to be a student. So, what are you waiting for? Connect today at liberty.edu. Liberty University, right now.
Welcome back to the LFSN studios on the campus of Liberty University. 2 more conferences to go. Dave, back on the hot seat once more, but apparently it doesn't bother you, so I guess we're fine there.
I'm a talker.
All right. Well, tell me your thoughts on the NECHL.
So for the last few years, after talking with the coaches and kind of looking at how things have played out, the NECHL has not got a lot of love. Like I mentioned, Syracuse last year, they made it into nationals with the auto bid. They won their first game, and then they lost to a very good Stony Brook team by 1 goal. And none of the other teams are really ranked that high. So I think that they've really worked hard, and they've started to see that they can have success. So I think when one team does well, it pushes the other team to do well. So with this year, Syracuse, they're the defending champ. They lost to Stony Brook. So I think that they're also going to be able to build off that. They're going to have a good recruiting year, and they're going to be able to, again, I think they're going to make another show at nationals. If they win the league, this will be their 3rd win in the last 4 years. Now, on the flip side of that, Niagara has also been a consistently good team. If they win the league, they're going to win 3 in the last 5. So those kind of top teams have kind of been dominating that division. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes over. As far as the other teams, they're kind of middle-of-the-pack teams that can surprise you on a night, but every time they play, they're pretty competitive. Canisius they have an older coach who's been there for a while, and he hopes to kind of move up a little bit this year. Maybe not win it, but kind of consistently grow. And then there's 3 other teams in Buffalo, Oswego, and Cortland. They have new coaches, so it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out with new systems and everything like that. So it should be an interesting league, and I think that they need to get a little more love moving forward. So I just want to kind of see how long it takes them to prove themselves in order to get maybe more than just one team at the Nationals.
Yeah, and become a little bit more prominent in the ACHA,
Absolutely.
getting more teams there. Is there a specific player to watch for fans who are maybe more interested in giving that conference a little bit more love?
Well, I picked Syracuse to win, so I'm going to go with John Ross LaPointe. This guy had 58 points last year, 7th in the league. Again, you need goals to win. I think this guy is going to have another stellar year, and I think he's going to lead them to the conference championship.
All right, well, last but not least, Pat, we're moving on to the WCHL conference. What do you have to say about them?
Well, I think there's a lot more fun in the West. This is how the West was won. I like what they're doing. There are 8 teams now in this conference. Out of those 8 teams, 7 of them are in the top 25. That is huge, more than any conference. They're one of the most competitive conferences in the league. I would actually like to see a best of the 5 best teams in this conference go against the 5 teams in the Central States. Kind of like one of those conference rivalries to see which conference is the more elite conference out of them. But yes, this is a strong conference. As you see, UCO 2 years ago were the national champs. Before that, it was ASU, who are now back in this conference. So 2 national championships from this conference in the last 3 years. So that's huge for them.
Now, looking at how things went last season and in previous seasons, is there a specific rivalry maybe that you could see forming or that's already formed?
Well, you got to always like the Oklahoma rivalry between Central Oklahoma and Oklahoma. That's going to be a huge one. Both teams had a lot of turnover, brought in some high-caliber recruits from the junior leagues. I definitely like what Oklahoma did, especially brought in some key guys, not only from other ACHA Division I caliber teams, but even some NCAA D3 schools. So they're really expected to have a great year. They did lose some key guys, but as I said, brought in a very strong recruiting class. So they're going to be definitely on the move for this conference. And also Colorado. That's a team a lot of people might be predicting to win this conference for the first time. They're a very strong team, bringing a lot of good depth, returned 10 of the top 10 scores, didn't really have any turnover in that conference, so that's been huge. Top line has 121 points, and so this team could really score in bunches.
What you're avoiding the battle of the desert. ASU Arizona is back. Fans love that in Arizona. They have more fans than any other game in the ACHA, and that's not the biggest rivalry?
Not for me.
All right, well, everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Head to Arizona for a week. And
I've been there, but
take a game
it's
in.
a different game so far. Different ASU team.
All right, well.
Anytime ASU plays.
Yeah, anyways, we got to wrap this up.
Well, anyways, we made it through all the conferences relatively unscathed, no big fist fights or anything, so I think round of applause for that. Now we're going to send it over to Gabe with Mike Walley once more.
Mike, we are back again. So we talked about Columbus earlier and just some of the stuff that it entailed, but just what's your vision for Columbus this year with all 5 teams come? What's a more in-depth analysis?
Well, first, I'm glad you asked that question because I want to get to Columbus, but my main focus is to, the way I see it is to enhance the experience of our 11,000 student athletes that participate in the divisions for ACHA.
Okay.
Those of us that went before, I'm honored to be part of this organization because the folks that came before built such a strong foundation for this organization.
Okay.
So how do you enhance what's already been built? One, every major sports organization has major sponsors. So we picked up Pure Hockey and Under Armour last year. That the folks know about that and the 10% discount. Since we picked up and we're honored to be contracted with Pure Hockey, they have since bought out Total Hockey, Hockey Giant, and Pure Bench. So they pretty much own or have a presence throughout the country right now. Okay. They're going to do flash sales starting this Friday, selling gear on the internet for just Friday through Sunday every weekend at a very low price. So those that want to hit the internet can do that. The other thing is how do they get these student athletes an experience that they'll remember and recall for the rest of their life, right? So they've already got an experience. We want to make sure that they're think and feel of playing professionally for their school, their university. So you end up in Columbus, Ohio. You have all 5 divisions there. But more importantly, as we focus on Division I will have all 20 teams downtown as we are sponsored and hosted by the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll be downtown playing all the 20 teams will be playing on the practice arena, which holds about 1,200 people.
Okay.
So it'll be packed. It'll be decked out.
Okay.
The logos will be on the ice. But more importantly, the professional locker rooms, the field will be a professional environment. And the Final Four, announced first here on your show, the Final Four will be televised by ESPN, ESPN3.
Oh, wow.
So, again, to make these student athletes feel special about getting to this national championship and getting out to a broader audience, right? To a broader audience, not just to enhance the experience of our 11,000 students, but all those high school athletes and Tier 1, Tier 2 athletes that say, hey, the ACHA has arrived and gotten there. The one last thing I will announce again first on your show here tonight. We have picked up another sponsor as well. This comes from the benefactor of an alumni, an ACHA alumni, who was coached by one of our commissioners. And Microsoft will now be sponsoring our academic All-Americans. Oh, wow. So again, you bring these sponsors, you build the brand name, you bring this experience in Columbus that hopefully the student athletes haven't had, as individuals before in individual ranks. Right. And we'll get hopefully not just them excited, but the nation excited about our 430 universities, 500 teams in 49 states. I mean, there's plenty of places for many junior hockey players to play in the ACHA and find a home.
Well, you got me wanting to play, but before I talk too much, I'm gonna send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Gabe and Mike. Well, guys, as we wrap things up, let's take a look ahead to the end of the season. Give me your predictions for top 4 teams to finish out the year, and then top team in the league.
I'm going to let Mr. All-American go first.
I don't want to take your teams, but I'm going to go kind of predictable with Stony Brook. I think they are going to finally pass that echelon and win the national championship. I think they're going to ride JT Hall's coattails, and I think they have done so many good things. They've won so many big games in the last few years, and I think this is their year to win it. So if they don't, they're going to let me down. I think that they're going to you don't want to do that. I think they're going to be Iowa State in the final. It's going to be a close game. My prediction is 4-2 already. So that's where I think that's going. I think Lindenwood is going to lose out in the semifinal, and I also think that Minot State is going to make the semifinal, but they're going to lose to Iowa State again, just because Iowa State's defense is just so strong, and Minot kind of plays that wide open, kind of wait for that power play, score that nice goal kind of game, and Iowa State matches well against them.
Well, Pat, your predictions?
Yeah, I think Dave definitely read off my cheat earlier before we started this, because we picked
the one time you agree.
Yeah, the one time we agree. We picked 3 of the same. I like Minot. Obviously, they've been one of the best defensive teams in all the country. Last year, they were the #1 offensive team, too, so I really like them. Lindenwood, it's hard not to put the defending champs back there. They've been to the Final Four so many times, so I got to go with them. Same with Iowa State. It's a very strong team. I had a tough time picking my last team because I really wanted to do Stony Brook. Been the last 3 of the last 4 Final Fours, but I had to go with Colorado. I'm really drinking the Kool-Aid that they got going on in Mile High City. They're really doing some good work there, so I got to put them in my Final Four.
All right.
Who's winning?
Yeah.
I got to say Lindenwood, just because. I'm not going to expand, just because.
All right, well, we'll see how things go. Thanks for joining us tonight for the men's ACHA preseason show. Stay tuned for the women's show coming up next. Thanks to the coaches who took the time to give their input and preseason analysis, as well as send us their team highlights from last season. For Patrick Strawn, Dave Semenina, and Gabe Henderson, I'm Monica McKenzie. Enjoy your evening, and God bless.